Great. Okay, so welcome to the virtual Agile meetup. It's lovely to see so many faces here today. Today we've got a wonderful guest, a really wonderful guest, who's going to be supporting. Our wonderful guest agrees with that, which is really good. It's always good to know when you've got a bit of self-confidence. So we're excited to have Johannes with us today. And we just want to say thank you. Obviously, it's Thanksgiving today. We're based in the UK, but actually, it's good just to acknowledge that everybody is super busy and has loads of stuff to do all the time, regardless of it's work, personal, whatever it might be. So the fact that you're here today to spend a bit of time with us is really great. How this session really works out. So first of all, as you know, we are recording this session. And hopefully everybody is fine with that. If you're not okay with that, then you know you're not being held hostage. Please leave, or hopefully you'll stay. Time box for this session is around about 90 minutes. We usually sometimes we finish a little bit earlier, but we don't overrun. It's a really important value of Ines and I's, because we know that everybody's time is valuable. In terms of questions and the chat box, so essentially these two things are going to go together today. So if you've got any questions, please whack them in the chat box and we'll keep an eye on them. Just a bit of a call out that Johannes' words, not mine. When it gets going, it gets going. It's like a train and it's not going to stop until we get to the end point. So just want to put that out there. It's not because we're ignoring your questions. We will come to them at the end. So please do raise them. And that's pretty much it. Usually, if you are people who've come back to this session today, I'd usually do a game called Rock, Paper, Scissors, but actually it's going to be so interactive today that I've chosen to park that, and you'll have to watch some of the other meetups that we've done in order to find out a little bit more about my rock paper, scissors game. So how did I get to know Johannes? Well, it's the first time we've actually met today. But essentially, I found out about you on the Scrum Alliance coaching pathway, I think it's called. And really interesting sort of course or pathway. It's free for people who are members of the Scrum Alliance. And it's excellent. It talks to people like Johannes. It talks to people who we had a guest on last month or the month before as well. And it was all sort of come together by Cherie as well. So I'd really highly recommend the Agile Alliance. I'm not sponsoring them. We're not being sponsored by them. It's just something that I'm quite excited about. And I think it's a really good session. Anyway, so that's how I met Johannes. And really, I'm going to hand over to you because you are the king or the person of facilitation. So if I may, over to you, Johannes.
Thank you. That sounds a bit scary when you say that, but I do have a bit of experience. And we're going to look at that. So I'm going to introduce myself in a second, but I'm going to do that on the Miro board that I prepared. So in the chat, I just dropped a link. You just click on it, and then there's a password that is also included in there that you have to enter. You should be able to enter as a guest, so don't sign any subscriptions or don't pay for anything on the way there. And I'll be waiting for you on the board, and I will bring everyone to me. As you can see, that's the title of the session today, Agile Facilitation Unleashed, Liberating Structures in Action. Like we just said, so it's going to be very interactive. I just want to make sure to the people, like if you don't want to share your video, that's fine. If you are unable to talk to someone else for whatever reason, I don't know, you might be in your car or you just wanted to listen, that's not going to work very well. But if you're unable to interact with other people, then please rename yourself. So on a computer, if you hover over your own image or your own video, there are 3 dots, and then you can click on rename, and then put something in, like, I don't know, like no audio or no breakout rooms or something like that, and then you will stay in the main session with me, and we can just be quiet together if you want. Okay, so has anyone Does anyone have trouble accessing the board? Does anyone need help? All right, then I'll get started. So I have all the power on this board, so I can hide and unhide things. As you can see, this is me. I usually forget to introduce myself. So I always I started having this slide and I copied this from other people because apparently when you start any kind of session, what you need to do is you need to have a slide and needs to list why you're competent so that people believe what you're going to say next. And it also needs to be about in the third person. So like I cannot be like, okay, this is me. The slide has to talk about Johannes, and that's because I'm a professional. This is what I did. So you can trust anything I say because I have, first of all, I'm a consultant, but I also have more than 13 years of Agile experience. I've been using liberating structures for almost 10 years. So in 2024, it's going to be my 10-year anniversary. I'm also co-author of the Zombie Scrum Survival Guide. You help me and my kids if you buy that book. And if you're interested, I can send you a discount link, but you will have to get in touch for that because I don't give it out easily. But I can offer you a discount on the ebook. And finally, I have 2 boys, so that means I never sleep. And if there are breaks in between, like when I'm not speaking and I just look confused or I kind of gaze off into the distance, that's because, like I said, I haven't slept in a long time. We're going to be talking about liberating structures today, but we're also going to experience liberating structures because that's the best way to get like a feeling for them. I could stand here and just talk to you about this, and then you would be, okay, that's interesting, but it's much more powerful for you to experience them. And that is going to be our start for today. So I would like you to have an experience and interact with other people, and then I'm going to explain what happened and why it happened and why it makes sense. And then we're going to try out 2 more liberating structures tonight. So in total, I will let you experience 3 liberating structures. Okay, and we're going to start with the question, why can't we simply work alone all the time? What are things groups of people can do that individuals cannot do? Okay, right now in this moment, I would like you to think about this on your own for 1 minute, and then I will put you into breakout groups. But for now, just think about this for 1 minute, and then something else is going to happen. All right. The minute is up. So Aria seems to have a problem with the microphone, so I am going to keep you out of the breakout rooms until you sort that out. What is going to happen now, I'm going to pair you, so you'll be in groups of 2. You get 2 minutes, but since we're on Zoom, I will give you an additional 60 seconds. Okay, there's going to be some transition time. It's going to take a couple of seconds for things to load. So once the time is up, you will see that there's going to be a countdown and you have an additional minute to finish your sentence. What I would like you to do in your pair is simply talk about this question. So what are your thoughts about this? Just exchange your ideas. And afterwards, I will bring you back and then something else is going to happen. Okay, so see you in 2 + 1 minute. All right, you might have noticed that I didn't press the button in time and you had some extra seconds. I hope you made the best of that extra time. You just had the chance to talk to one other person about this. Now I'm going to drop you into, let me see. So you'll be in groups of 4. There's some Zoom stuff that I have to do in the background because I'm trying to keep your pairs intact, okay? You will get 4 minutes to talk about the same question. And on the board, you can see that there is a section that is called 1, 2, 4 all results. And these, there are sticky notes that are grouped by room. So once you're in your room, you will see the room number. And then I'm asking you to take notes, or ideally like focus on the most important things in your discussion and keep these, or like write these down on the note, post-it notes on the board, okay?
Were we meant to be doing that before?
Sorry, what?
Were we meant to be doing that in the last room?
No.
Okay.
I didn't say that, and that's, so you're fine so far. Everyone has done a great job. It's going super well. And now is the time for everyone to do that. All right, like I said, so this is always the moment when I look focused, and then I have to improvise because I'm not good at multitasking.
Well, I heard the other day, I'm sure it's a true fact, that only 5% of people can truly multitask. So feel free to use that anytime. I'm part of the 95% of people. Proudly, yeah.
All right. We will have no us. So actually, I'm going to do groups of 5 because I think someone said their mic didn't work properly. Someone had technical issues. So you will have at least 4 people in your group that you will be able to talk to. You get 4 minutes plus 60 seconds again for transition time. Please collect the key points on the Miro board and answer the question in your group. I'm going to open the rooms right now, and this time I'm going to press the button on time. Right. Okay, everybody. So it's nice to have you back. So I just want to be honest. I don't care about the results too much. But maybe like each one of you, like from each group, one of you wants to share like the top 2 things that you talked about. Like, what are some reasons for people not to work alone all the time? What did you decide on in your group?
So I could speak for room 3, if you like. So I think 2 key things we came up with was the fact that a mix of be that skills, opinions, competence, just a diversity within a group can drive progress really towards the goal. And secondly, that we are inherently social beings, and working in groups allows you to meet some of those core social needs that theoretically should put you on a platform to perform better towards the goal you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Room 2. What did you come up with?
I mean, I can share. I actually, it's something I hadn't thought about in alone or in the pair, but what came up in our room is this idea of it's a risk management thing too. If you're adding more people to the mix, you're not at risk of a project or knowledge completely disappearing if, God forbid, someone goes under a bus or, something changes.
Nice. And room 1?
Well, it has
Specific to
yeah.
add.
Go.
Sorry, Joris, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead, Joris.
It's a little bit, I think, like group 3 mentioned, social beings. And we also came up with everybody thinks of themselves, of course, as you have something to offer. But if you hear something from someone else, which the 1 + 1 would be 3, for example, there is limited time, limited resources, limited skills, and so on. So if you can take advantage of more people, you feel that advantage as well. So everybody would feel that advantage, I suppose. Yeah. I put in the end also the word surprise factor. So if you are working on yourself, there would not be a real surprise because you are deciding everything. But if someone else does something which you didn't see coming, it could make your day or not. But then again, it's not boring.
Great, thank you. So on the board, I'll bring everyone to me again. And like I promised, I am going to speak about liberating structures for a bit. And you picked up pretty much all of the things that I'm going to emphasize, but in our environment nowadays, and this is especially something I feel that agile ways of working have accelerated, is that we, like in traditional organizations, we work in a lot of silos and we have lots of experts and they can communicate through documentation and things like that. But if we're facing complex problems, we probably want to interact more tightly. We want to do something that's called sense making. So it's not like we can just analyze things, but we often have to get together in a group and make sense of a certain situation, because we cannot be sure that we completely understand the problem. We cannot be sure that our solution is going to be the right one. And that means that we probably want to hear a wider set of voices. But in my experience, most people are not educated to do that, or they don't have the necessary tools. And I actually have a pretty similar story. So like I said, I discovered liberating structures a little more than 10 years ago. And before that, there was a moment when I was working as a Scrum Master for an organization. And there was an incident and production stood still. And in this company, that meant like every second you can kind of see the money like flow out of the window, because like you need to fix this right now because we're just burning cash, right? And people eventually got it under control. And what we did was, since 3 teams were involved, we decided to do a multi-team retrospective, which sounded like a great idea at the time. And so me and the other 2 Scrum Masters got together and we devised this great plan, and we used all our cool techniques for retrospectives. And then we had these 30 people in the room, and it didn't work at all. And just, I know, like there was no interaction. People didn't really participate. We would ask questions and there was just like silence for a couple of minutes. I was really disappointed, and so I decided to make it worse. Okay, so the next day I actually went to gather all the teams and share my disappointment that I thought, you know, hey, I was really expecting something else from you. Like you didn't participate. And then someone kind of said, well, you know, like this wasn't structured very well. And then I was kind of like making, you know, excuses and things like that. And so I look back on that today and I can tell you exactly why this didn't work out. But back then I just noticed like, okay, I have all these tools for facilitating a team and doing some form of retrospective, but there's something happened here where more people came together and it didn't work at all. So I just noticed that, okay, there seems to be a big gap in my tool set. So I'm missing something. And after a while, I was kind of growing into the realization that this retrospective had also been my responsibility, and I was kind of holding the frame for all the people. So at that point, I was just looking for something to help me and to give me like a tool set to you know, be more helpful in those situations in the future. And what happened then was that eventually I discovered liberating structures. And I So I'll just like briefly go into what liberating structures are. So as it says here, it's a repertoire of 33 options for organizing generative interactions that include and unleash more people. If you want, you can just say it's a set of facilitation methods. That is not wrong, but it's also much more than that. So I really honestly have to say that there are kind of layers to liberating structures where on the surface level, and I'll share this towards the end, you can just go to the website, you can get the book, you'll find great descriptions of, hey, if you want to achieve this result, just do these steps. And that's also true, but Keith and Henry, the developers, so I had the pleasure of working with them and spending some time with them. They're like complexity theory enthusiasts. And so you'll find all these deep meanings and like hidden methods within those liberating structures. And usually like I encourage everyone just to try one and then maybe choose another one. But if you stick with it and expand your repertoire, then you will find that there's like a rich set of approaches in there. And I will give some examples towards the end. But for now, just like I think it's enough to say liberating structures are a set of facilitation methods. They're structured in a specific way, and they're free. You can use them anytime. You don't have to pay for them. It's not a cult. You don't have to sign away your soul or provide any sensitive information or anything. That's also not the case. It's actually that good. You can just take them and use them. We just did one that is called One Two for All, and in my opinion, it's maybe the most versatile liberating structure because you can use it basically anytime for anything. Other liberating structures are much more specific and have like a narrower purpose for you to achieve a specific result. Each one of those liberating structures is specified according to 5 design elements. And Keith and Henry, this is something that they contributed that I really enjoy, and I think they kind of they did the world a big service by kind of surfacing these elements. So this is just going to be like a short piece about, like, it's just a short bit of information that's going to get more interactive again. But what they're saying is that any type of human interaction, like as soon as people come together, then these 5 design elements are always at play. And that's why each of these liberating structures is kind of described by being explicit about how this element or like each element is being used to achieve a specific purpose. And first of all, we have make an invitation. Okay, so you're asking people specifically to do something. In like our case, when we did the One Two for All, I was asking you to think about a specific question and find answers for that, right? So whenever we come together, it always helps to be very specific about what people are supposed to do or supposed to achieve. Okay, and so these design elements, they apply anytime, like I said, so not just specifically to liberating structures, but anytime you feel like your interaction might be lacking, you can also just use these elements and check if one of them is maybe not in place. My experience is that often people just come together and the invitation is just kind of like, hey, we need to talk about X. That might not be specific enough. And it might be much more helpful to provide a narrow invitation to people so that they know specifically what it is that you're working towards. Second design element is distribute participation. When we get together in a large group, this is not specified, so anybody can just participate any way they see fit. In liberating structures, often what we do is that we specify, for example, who gets to talk and who gets to listen. So we have different kind of structures. Sometimes it's not specified, or it's kind of like an open discussion. But sometimes, for example, we have like, there's a talking object, and when you have that object, you speak and everybody else listens. Or we're going to do a structure in a second where the speaking and listening part is also specifically mentioned, and the participation is explicitly distributed in a specific way. Third part is configure groups. So usually what we do in liberating structures is that we split large groups into smaller ones. And Helen and I were just talking about this. It usually helps quite a bit to get people interacting, right? So if you have a large group, I don't know, like I'm usually like, or at the core of my being, I'm an introvert. I also don't like enjoy speaking in front of big groups, or it always takes a moment because I'm very mindful of other people, and I might want, you know, I'm always checking, like, does anybody else want to say anything? But if you split people into smaller groups, then it gets so much easier, because it's easier to talk to just one person instead of like 80, for example. And then once you've talked to one person and you kind of decided that you have similar answers, for example, then it gets easier to talk to 3 other people. And so that, like in this type of pattern, usually in liberating structures, we start with small groups, then slightly larger groups, and then maybe at some point we'll take it into the big like entire group, but there will always be some form of group configuration. Fourth design element is arrange space. This, like in my opinion, I just gave, like, it was a different meetup last night, and you can, like in a 3D environment, you can see much more clearly how the room and the space actually shapes interaction. So if, like last night, there was theater seating, and you can just tell like all the focus is on the person in front just by the way that the seats are set up. So people don't expect anything to happen behind them, for example. I often get in trouble at conferences because they do theater seating, and then once we leave the room, then everything is just messed up because people start taking the chairs and forming small groups and things like that. So it's very interesting, but like people, like it's a big step for people to kind of destroy that initial configuration. And it's like, we've done a lot of experience on this. It's fascinating to see how, like, if you just put chairs in a certain way or put like some form of whiteboard or something somewhere, then it completely changes how people interact. In our case today, it's like we're meeting virtually. We have the Miro board as a visual facilitation aid. But anytime like people come together, be mindful of how you arrange the space. And then finally, we want to sequence and allocate the time. So each liberating structure has specific steps that are described, and we always work in very short time boxes. So there, usually we don't give a lot of time, but we keep it very tight. It just helps people focus on what is essential. If people feel like they didn't go deep enough or they were missing something, you're always invited to just kind of repeat a time box or do it again. But again, so not always, but often it's not a great idea just to be like, okay, let's talk about for unspecified amount of time. Because if it's like, okay, here's 5 minutes, let's see, like after 5 minutes, let's do a quick check-in. That really helps to kind of keep the pace going, make it a bit more interactive and also a bit more exciting. Right, and so those are the 5 design elements. In the case of the 1-to-4, like I said, I gave you the invitation to talk about the question that was on the board. The participation kind of, because you were in small groups, wasn't specified. Like you were able to just negotiate between yourselves who gets to talk for what amount of time. Specifically the groups, as is in the name, 1 minute by yourself, 2 minutes in groups of 2, and 4 minutes in groups of 4, which is also the time element. And then space in this case was that I sent you into breakout rooms instead of like doing this in the big room. Okay. I forgot to say, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I will check this at some point, but we will also have a few minutes at the end if you want to ask anything. But if there's something like that is like you want to write down before it slips your mind or something, then you're always invited to do that in the chat. Okay, this is the theory part, okay? But what I want to like emphasize again, I highly recommend liberating structures. Check out the menu. But you don't have to use liberating structures all the time. But what I always do is that I'm mindful of these 5 elements. And if something in the interaction feels off, then I kind of check what could it be? Like what this group benefit from setting, like having a time limit? Would this group benefit from, hey, let's just split this large group into smaller groups? Is the invitation maybe not clear that I'm giving people? Do we maybe have power differences, and so we need to distribute participation much more specifically so that everybody gets like an equal amount of speaking time? And that's my invitation to you, to be mindful of these 5 elements and use these in your interactions from now on. Okay, so on the board, what we're going to do next is a liberating structure called appreciative interviews. I'm going to explain this, and while I do, you have time to think of this invitation. In a minute, I would like you to tell a story to someone else of a time when collaborating with other people worked surprisingly well. So maybe you can just think back to however long ago it was, when you're like, hey, this was something special, and for some reason it worked much better than the interactions that I'm usually part of. So you're going to tell the story of this time. You're going to tell it to someone else, and we want to find out what happened. Okay, so again, I'll give you just a couple of seconds to think about this, and then I'll give you more instructions while I also set up the rooms. All right, so what is going to happen specifically is this. You will find, so you will in a breakout room with another person. You will get 8 minutes in total. All right. For 4 minutes, I would like person 1, and you can decide who that is, person 1 to start telling their story, and the other person to ask questions. And your job is to kind of dig deeper and kind of ask, what made this success possible? What was it specifically that happened? Why? What was it about this that made it more successful than the other interactions that you're usually part of? So you kind of assist that other person in telling their story and kind of digging deeper. You can take you can just grab a Post-it and take notes if you want. I recommend it because there's as a spoiler, in the second round, you will have to tell the summary of that story to another group, okay? So if you feel like you can just keep it all in your head, that's great. If you want, you can take notes. And so 8 minutes in total, 4 minutes for person 1. After 4 minutes, I'm going to send you a message, and then you swap. So person 2 gets to tell the story, person 1 gets to ask questions, and then afterwards we'll get back into the main room, and there's going to be something else that is going to happen. All right. It's great if you want to keep your own time, but like I said, I also sent you a message after 4 minutes, and I'll ask you to swap roles. Okay, yeah, I'll open the rooms.
Bonus 60 seconds, isn't it?
All right. So I'll do some stuff in the background while I'll try to talk. I'm going to drop you into groups of 4 now, and what I would like you to do is, so you will get about 10 minutes. What I would like you to do is, for each person, you retell the essence of the story that you were just told by the other person. Okay. And my Mac is doing these things where, I don't know, like when I want it to work, it doesn't work, but yeah, see. So like for maybe like about a minute, you just retell what you just heard. So you like people get to hear like the essence of what the other person said. And then the remaining time, right? So that's maybe 4 minutes, like for each person, if you each take 1 minute. For the rest of the time, you talk about, like, do you see any type of patterns within these 4 stories? Is there something that repeats or something that strikes you where you're like, okay, I think I see like something like a root element in all of this that seems to contribute to actually improving collaboration, right? So because these were actual events, this happened to someone. Wouldn't it be great if you could extract the best parts of this? And that's what you're going to do in your group, okay? And that's, again, I would like you to use the stickies on the board for that. And I know you already started taking notes there. Maybe just clear up some space. So if you're in room 2 and you can see that there's already stuff there, just move it to the side and focus on your group, and you can use all the space you want. It's great how the group sizes are working out today. It's like magic. So we have 3 perfect groups of 4. Right, so again, for the timing, 10 minutes plus 60 seconds. Take about a minute to retell the story you just heard, and then look for patterns and root causes. All right, see you on the other side. All right, great. Let's just, people are still coming back. Let's just go through some of the results quickly. So room 1, what were like the main causes or the root factors of good collaboration that you identified from the stories?
I'll start sharing some of ours, if you're
Great.
okay. It was with Jörg and Svenja and mysterious Mr. R. We have had many elements: chemistry, compatibility, energy, having space to breathe, share ideas, playing with them too. Ideally, not just time box tyranny. Also the proactive desire to help others, making them more autonomous, more competent as a skill, as a gift. And this, in the story, you could see that this comes back at you, and it spreads throughout the organization or through the team. Definitely influences the culture. Yeah, I'd say at the highest level, I think one of the conclusions of one of the stories was at the highest level, it would be about growing others, even. I mean, having that intention at least, not in a paternalistic way. That's not how the story went. It was like humble.
Yeah. Nice. Room 2.
So the main thing which came out of ours, when we think about good experience, it was ones where there was alignment between either the coach and the team, the leader in the team, or just within the team. And actually, what seemed common across our experiences was actually the experiences we are now thinking of with no preparation as good experiences were ones that were surprisingly good, where we had some skepticism or doubts about going into initially. And they were memorable because they were unexpectedly good. And we think one of the reasons that is there was unexpected alignment in the groups. And that was a common theme we picked up in our room.
Thank you. Room 3.
I can share. So we had a lot of things all over the place, but some of the themes that came through were that constraints definitely help. When things are too open, then it's really hard to collaborate. It's really hard to stay focused. Creating comfort zones and also creating discomfort zones helps. So the comfort zones where they have trust and respect and know each other and understand each other, but also being willing to go through the conflicts that can happen and get to the other side where things can improve.
Thank you. Great. So using individual liberating structures is fun and it's great. They become more powerful when you use multiple, and you can string them together. And in like liberating structures jargon, we talk about strings actually. And in this case, I'll just want to give you a quick example of how to do this. So we identified some of these patterns or root causes of good collaboration in this exercise, and now they kind of stand there, but they're kind of waiting for us to do something with them. And that's what we're going to do in the next liberating structure, which is called 15% solutions. Just briefly, this is based on the work of Gareth Morgan, and he kind of says that 85%, like in most organizations, 85% of the things that happen to you are not under your control, but about 15% are actually, that's something that you can influence, and that is what this is based on. So when we're talking about 15% solutions, we always talk about like a small thing that you can do yourself without asking for more permission, or like for any kind of permission or more resources or anything. So something that is in your control, like a tiny step. And I'll give you one example. So when I was talking to Henry, one of the co-developers, and he at the time there was this big scandal in Germany about all the automobile manufacturers, putting in these mechanisms into their cars to pollute the air and not like trying not to be caught because they have like all these cheating mechanisms in their engines. And Volkswagen was kind of the first one to be exposed. And Henry asked me, hey, you're based in Germany, right? So what can you do to influence the culture at Volkswagen? And I thought, hey, listen, I just happen to be in the same country. That's kind of insane. Like, what can I do? But then I thought about these 15% solutions, and I thought, okay, what is something small that can actually get me one step closer to what he's asking? And then I thought, okay, I would need to get some like entry, or like I'll need some form of contact person within Volkswagen. Do I know anyone? I don't. But do I know anyone who's well connected in the industry? And then I thought of my brother and I asked him, hey, do you know anyone at that company? And he said yes. And then he sent me an email address, and then I just wrote an email to someone saying, hey, I have these cool liberating structures. Would you be interested, like just talking about this? And then so I haven't managed yet to change the entire culture, but just with this kind of mindset shift of, this big task of, changing an entire culture. But like the first step, that was really important. Just, like this is under my control. I can just contact someone else. And that's an example of a 15% solution, right? And I would like you, so you can go over the results of the appreciative interviews that we just did. You can also think of something else. But what is one small thing that you can do yourself to improve your own collaborative environment? So like when you close the session today, or maybe at the latest tomorrow morning when you start your work, what is like, how could you contribute to improving that environment that you're in and the collaboration in just one tiny thing, like a tiny shift that you're going to introduce? All right. So take 2 minutes to do that, and then you will get the chance to talk about this in small groups. But for right now, I just would like you to take 2 minutes to think about the question, and you can just take notes underneath if you want, if that helps you. You don't have to, but it's free and you can just grab a post-it note, and I'm going to set a timer that we actually have exactly 2 minutes.
Did you want us to put anything on a post-it note? Sorry.
You can, you don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I will now put you into groups of 3 people, roughly 3, might be 4. And you will get 5 minutes just to share your 15% solutions with each other. So just tell the other people, here's one thing that I'm trying to do. And then the other people in your group can try to help you improve what you have. So maybe they have another great suggestion for you. Maybe they can ask a great question. Maybe they can make you help it even more actionable and more realistic. So just like distribute the time in your group as you see fit. You have 5 minutes plus 1. Share what you have for your 15% solution, and then you kind of take rounds. Okay, see you in a bit. Liberating structures. I'm just I'm just going to repeat that for the recording. There are layers to liberating structures, and people often, like, there's a novelty effect to them, which is nice, and people often like, okay, we've done this before, and then we're like, yeah, and now we're going to do it again, because there's practice involved as well, and especially things like 15% solutions. You get so much better at it after a while, and if you know what these are, it's really helpful for any group. So once you have kind of primed the group, and you can just ask, because towards the end of a meeting, people are always just like, yeah, we all agree, cool. And then, but when you then ask the question, okay, so what are the 15% solutions? Then people are just like, oh, okay, we still have a lot of work, because it's like, I thought you were going to do this, but I'm supposed to, okay. Right, and Robin, thank you for adding that to the chat. So on, I'll show you in a second way to find all the information, and you'll get, you can see that there will be examples. So I think people are seeing me on the board. I'm just going to quickly throw some inspiration at you. So this is not extensive in any way. I just want to kind of clarify or give you some ideas of how else you can use them. So some liberating structures are almost like retrospectives in themselves. So if you're working in an agile environment, you can check out, for example, Discovery and Action Dialogue. You need to find some kind of topic, then you go through the Discovery and Action Dialogue. I think it's great. You kind of look at the problem in more detail, find solutions, and define actions. Triz is always great. So for example, if you're working in a Scrum environment, how to make sure that the next sprint is going to be the worst one ever, or like it's going to be known as the worst sprint, even outside of organization. That is always fun to do. Something like generative relationships is almost like a small team assessment in itself that you can also repeat. So that is something I recommend. Conversation Cafe, if you want to talk about topics where it's really important to hear every voice, that is something I can recommend. Or something like What's the What Now What, where you look at what is it specifically that happened, why is that important, what are we going to do next, which also, if you have, if you think about like the 5 steps of a classic retrospective, that kind of aligns with the middle part, which is gather data, generate insights, and decide what to do. And What's the What Now What is also great for reviews, for example. Again, like in Scrum environment, for example, if you just want to bring everybody on the same page, what has happened, what does that mean for our ambitions, what are we going to do next? You can do strategy with liberating structures, critical uncertainties, eco-cycle planning is great. If you want to set up a team, purpose to practice is something I recommend. It answers most of the important questions. And if you want to do improvement across teams, What I Need From You is awesome, because you can kind of look at like, what is it specifically that we need from someone else? What do they need from us? More information as promised. So websites, liberatingstructures.com. We did the German translation. There's a French website. I think there are other languages by now as well. There's a book, The Amazing Power of Liberating Structures by Keith and Henry. Like I said, all the information can be found for free on the website, but it's great to read it in this book in a structured way. And then we also created the app, which has all of the languages. People in our company develop it mostly in their free time. So yes, your feature request is going to be like end up in the app eventually. Give us some time. We don't make any money on this. We spend money on this. So be grateful for what you get. So app is free, and you can download that and find most of the information there. And then if you want to stay in touch, I will answer questions. So I reply if you want to send an email or follow on LinkedIn. And I also recommend my book that I co-wrote with Christian and Barry, the Zombie Scrum Survival Guide. It's also heavily inspired by Liberating Structures, and Henry, one of the co-developers, actually wrote the foreword for it. I will stay here to answer questions. I saw your questions in the chat, so if you want to have an answer for that, then you can stay. But I just want to make sure that we kind of finish on time. So I'm German. It's 31 after the hour, so we're 1 minute late. I'm sorry for that, but roughly on time. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much for spending so much time and just showing us some great facilitation skills. So that's brilliant. One thing that we would ask of everybody before we move on to questions, if you're able to stay, is that we love to hear back from people of, what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, and also what you want to hear about, because essentially we only run this group for you, really, and the things that you're interested to. And then Ines and I go out and source different speakers to try and come and beg them to speak at our little meetup. No, we don't do that. People run to us. So please do let us know. I think Ines is just going to put that in the chat now, but if we go for it and ask for some of the questions we had, I'm just trying to go back to the questions. There's one question that in situations where you're getting absolutely no engagement from the group, do you have any really fundamental and generic actions you take, like a game or a task, to at least warm people up?
I don't. And so Helen and I have been talking so often, it really depends on the situation on the group. If there's no engagement, one of the basic questions is, why are we spending time together? Is this actually valuable? And it might actually, so often, like if I get nothing from the group, I really, and like not in an aggressive way, but I just try to work out with the group, is this the most productive way to spend our time, or could we be doing more interesting things together? If people still agree, like, okay, this is, we should do this, then often, yeah, like, people like large groups or like an open discussion often can be difficult for people. So it might be, and I think someone pointed this out in the chat, just splitting people into smaller groups can already be a great step to so it just kind of forces you to talk to someone else. And if you are sitting in a group and say nothing and everybody else is also saying nothing, then you kind of disappear in that group. But if you're two people and you don't talk to the other person, that is really weird. And so you can kind of, force the interaction a bit by doing that. And then, like I said, so it really depends on the group and the situation, but something like that, or like just seeing if you're still committed to the initial goals that you want to achieve as a group, then you can also make specific suggestions to the group and ask, is this going to be more helpful for us reaching our goals?
Thank you. And there's a similar question to that, but with a slight difference. So when you feel the dynamic in the group is conflicting or irritating, what might you do?
And I don't want to like I want to give as straight of an answer as I can, but also in this case, especially when you have conflict, that is super difficult to navigate, and it's I cannot give like an answer that is always valid. Here's some things you can do. You can actually help, or like you can give it back to the group. So for example, you could like, what so what now what is a tool for this, where you can just let the group reflect on what are you perceiving that is happening in this moment, in this workshop, and then kind of help the group towards making sense of this. So I've done this many times before, and it can work really well, so that people, like, you interrupt the process and then people reflect on what is happening, and then often they have great insights where they're just like, okay, I'm just noticing we're just raising our voices and we're just arguing, and I don't think that's helpful. So for the rest of the workshop, maybe let's not do that. And could be other things, could be, for example, if you use a conversation cafe, this one is highly structured and you have a talking object. And that makes sure that everybody actually gets to speak and also is heard, right? And that, for example, can, if you have conflict, that can help so that people don't like interrupt each other all the time. But those are just some general inspirations. And I also have to say, sometimes you are in situations that you cannot solve as a facilitator. And I also will point that out. Okay, so if it's like, I think I have stopped 3 workshops where I'm just like, okay, this is like impossible. Like there's no way in my tool set in which I can make this productive. And then like I'll try to debrief with maybe the people who got me in there and make some suggestions on how to proceed. But you can also just say, okay, this is this is not going to work. And that's like a drastic step, but sometimes it's necessary.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I know that we are a little bit over, but thank you again, everybody, for coming. And Ines and I do like to take a little break over the winter period. We go into hibernation. We're actually bears. This is just our human self. So we will be back in February 2024. But like I say, please do take literally a minute and a half to fill out the form if you don't mind. And thank you again, Johannes, for just being a wonderful guest and facilitating this session.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Good night.